Good afternoon and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Transportation. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go up to the Sergeant-at-Arms desk to fill out a testimony slip, even if you registered online. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's hearing of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Today's hearing will focus on DOT transparency and notice requirements. In addition, the committee will discuss several pieces of legislation that are being introduced today. The Department of Transportation plays a critical role in ensuring the safe, efficient, and environmentally responsible movement of people and goods in New York City. The agency currently oversees 6,300 miles of streets and highways, over 12,000 miles of sidewalks, and approximately 800 bridges and tunnels throughout the city. Among its many roles, the DOT is responsible for ensuring street safety, administering programs, planning projects, overseeing news racks, regulating parking, and managing the city transportation infrastructure. This is done with the expectation that the DOT remains transparent and accountable to the public, while also ensuring that stakeholders understand specific notices and requirements related to DOT projects. Given the DOT's vast portfolio and range of responsibilities, it can be difficult for New Yorkers to navigate the city's complex systems of rules and notifications. It is my hope today that this hearing sheds light on and demystifies DOT processes and regulations. In addition to our oversight topic, we will be hearing important legislation today, covering an array of topics. We will be hearing, notice and requirements, speed reducers, open streets, parking, and news rack. Two bills, intro number 172, sponsored by Councilmember Hudson, and intro number 1033, sponsored by Councilmember Arreola, involve notifications regarding the Open Streets program. Intro number 172 is in relation to notification and community input regarding designation, removal of, and changes to open streets. And intro number 1033 is in relation to requiring the DOT to consult with the fire department prior to approving open street applications and certain bicycle lane projects, and to notify affected firehouses prior to approving open street applications, bicycle lane projects, and major transportation projects. Intro number 810, sponsored by Councilmember Bottcher, would establish standards regarding the placement and maintenance of news racks. News racks can be found throughout our city, and this bill would give DOT the flexibility to regulate news rack size and shape and will ensure they are properly situated. Intro number 922, sponsored by Councilmember Arreola, would require the DOT to notify affected community boards and council members 15 days before removing a parking space. Lastly, intro number 1030, sponsored by Councilmember Williams, would require DOT to post certain information regarding the status of traffic control devices and speed reducer requests on its websites. And intro number 1120, sponsored by Councilmember Carr, would require a raised speed reducer feasibility assessment at speed camera locations. Both these bills are related to street safety and how to improve the systems we have in place. Traffic control and speed reducing improvements are necessary aspects of DOT street design. As chair of this committee, I have advocated for street common measures, hard infrastructure at speed camera locations in the past. It is imperative that DOT equitably invests in and improves neighborhoods that are suffering from high rates of traffic fatalities and crashes, rather than simply punishing and fining individuals. Overall, I look forward to hearing from DOT advocates, and member of the public regarding the oversight and legislation at this hearing. Before we begin, I would like to thank my staff and committee staff for their hard work. Mark Chen, Senior Counsel to the Committee, Connor Mealy, Counsel to the Committee, Kevin Katowski, Senior Policy Analyst, John Basile, Senior Policy Analyst, Jack Siegenthaler, my Policy and Budget Director, and Renee Taylor, my Chief of Staff. I now invite Councilmember Carr to make an opening statement.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I so appreciate this important hearing and an opportunity to speak on my bill, Introduction 1120. I think that, street safety and traffic safety is among the foremost responsibilities of municipal government, and certainly in New York City, it's no exception. And one of the things that I think many of us have come to support are speed reducers, whether it's speed humps in certain areas and speed cushions in areas where speed humps are just not appropriate. And one such location was in front of PS 26 in the neighborhood of Travis in my district, where we had a speed cushion request that was approved but could not be placed closer to the school, which was the whole point of the request, because it was within 1,000 feet of an existing speed camera, and agency rules prohibited or precluded that from happening. And I believe that no camera could ever be as effective at controlling speed on a corridor as an actual physical impediment like a speed hump or a speed cushion or a raised crosswalk. And that's why this bill was introduced, because I think it's important that we prioritize street safety measures that are the most effective. And certainly there's a spectrum of opinion with respect to the speed camera program, but no matter how you feel about it, speed humps, speed cushions, and raised crosswalks clearly are going to be more effective at slowing vehicles down as they approach some of our most sensitive locations, like the front of a school. And so that's why this bill is here, and why I'm so grateful that it's being heard today, and I hope that the administration can find its way to support it and work with us to make our streets even safer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Councilmember Bottcher.
Thank you so much, Chair. Every New Yorker is familiar with those sidewalk newspaper boxes that seem to be everywhere, especially in Manhattan, in the district I represent. And in true New York City fashion, we have a love-hate relationship with them. We love when they give us convenient access to the papers that we love, but we don't love when they're frequently neglected, vandalized, broken, filled with garbage, tipped over, causing sidewalk congestion, or just plain eyesores. And many of these boxes aren't even for newspapers, but for promotions for commercial enterprises. Until now, the city hasn't been able to do a whole lot to address this issue because the current regulations don't empower them to. That's why today we're having a hearing on city council legislation that I introduced that will clarify and strengthen the regulations regarding the siting, design, and maintenance of sidewalk news racks. Intro 810 directs the Department of Transportation to develop standards regarding the manner in which news racks and boxes can be placed or installed. It gives the Department of Transportation the ability to create design standards regarding the size, shape, and appearance of news racks. It also clarifies that news racks shouldn't be used for just promotional and advertising purposes other than announcing the name and/or website of the publication offered for distribution. The legislation will require news rack owners to affix their name, address, telephone number, and email address in a readily visible location on the front or sides of the news rack. That way, we all know who's responsible for it. We know who to contact if there's a problem with it. I want to thank the co-sponsor of this legislation, Councilmember Sandra Ung, and all the community organizations and residents who've already gotten behind this bill. I want to thank Majority Whip Sylvina Brooks Powers for your leadership on so many of these important issues. Together, we'll keep working to improve life for New Yorkers in ways large and small.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Councilmember Ariola.
Thank you, Chair. This afternoon, we'll be hearing about Intro 0922 and Intro 1033, two bills which will help improve the quality of life of New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. Intro 0922 would require the Department of Transportation to notify affected community boards and council members 15 days before removing a parking space. That would allow local residents, leaders to weigh in on the decision to remove these spaces during that 15-day period. This would grant greater power to our communities and let those most directly impacted decide for themselves whether or not they would like these spaces removed, rather than leaving the choices solely up to planners somewhere behind a desk who will never be affected by the changes that they seek to implement. Intro 1033 would greatly improve the safety in our city by requiring the Department of Transportation to notify area firehouses prior to approving any major transportation projects that might impede the ability of the fire department to respond to an emergency in a timely manner. This bill would also require DOT to consult with the fire department prior to approving open street applications and prior to the construction or removal of any bicycle lane that would result in the removal of a vehicular travel lane or a parking lane. DOT would also be required to provide certification of such consultation. In situations where every second counts to save a life, these consultations would guarantee that the FDNY is not delayed in their responses to any emergencies, thus safeguarding our residents and in the event of a tragedy. Thank you for the time to listening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Councilmember Williams.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the significance of Bill Intro 1030. This proposal seeks to enhance transparency within the Department of Transportation by establishing a user-friendly website offering the public real-time access to information on traffic control device and speed reducer requests. The website will feature crucial details such as case numbers, general topics, issue status, resolutions, and reasons for approvals or denials. If approved, timelines for device completion will also be available. The inspiration for this bill comes from many constituents putting in speed mitigation requests and getting denied and not having a reason why. This initiative aims to clear up the opaque criteria and empower the public, as well as foster a safer and more collaborative relationship between communities and DOT. I extend my gratitude to Chair Brooks Powers for acknowledging the importance of this bill. Thank you.
And thank you. And I first would like to also acknowledge the members that have joined this committee hearing today: Councilmember Carr, Kagan, Ariola, Arias, Lewis, Ressler, Rivera, Williams, Narcisse. Next, I'm going to read testimony on behalf of Councilmember Kevin Riley, who could not be here today. I am not going to read it in its entirety, but it will be put in for the record. I'm here today to emphasize the crucial importance of Intro 1033, a fundamental step towards strengthening agency partnership, calling on the Department of Transportation to collaborate effectively with the FDNY to guarantee that our city's transportation projects align with the safety needs of our communities. Every district is unique with its own set of dynamics and challenges, making it imperative to approach projects on a case-by-case basis. This is precisely where Intro 1033 becomes indispensable. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this legislation, mandating that DOT consults with the fire department before approving open street applications and certain bicycle lane projects. By requiring notifications to affected firehouses before green-lighting these projects, we are placing a critical check on the decision-making process. While the intention of street design projects is to strike a balance among the needs of pedestrians, riders, and drivers alike, they can sometimes omit critical functionalities that vary from one community to another. In my district, the White Plains Road protected bike lanes have elicited ongoing concern from numerous residents, business owners, and municipal workers, including our local fire department. With the lanes altering parking and conflicting with our elevated train network, inevitable congestion has hindered the flow of traffic in one of our community's busiest business market. This poses a potential challenge to the ability of firefighters and EMT professionals to promptly act in emergency situations where response times can be decisive to optimizing life-saving interventions. I urge my colleagues to endorse this bill as it signifies a dedication to the well-being and safety of our constituents. Thank you. I will now ask the committee council to go over some procedural items and swear in the representatives from DOT. I will take point of privilege to say that we received the testimony from DOT 15 minutes ago, and that is unacceptable. I've asked on numerous occasions for testimony to come to us at least 24 hours in advance so that the committee staff is able to better prepare myself and the members of this committee to ask meaningful questions so that there is limited redundancy, because some of the questions we have may be addressed in your testimony, or we may need to delve deeper. So in the future, we ask that the testimony be set in advance, at least the day before. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Mark Chen, Counsel to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee of the New York City Council. Our first witnesses will be from the Department of Transportation, Eric Beaton, Deputy Commissioner for Transportation Planning and Management, and Rick Rodriguez, Assistant Commissioner for Intergovernmental and Community Affairs. I will now administer the oath. Please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Brooks Powers and members of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. I am Eric Beaton, Deputy Commissioner for Transportation Planning and Management. With me today is Rick Rodriguez, Assistant Commissioner for Intergovernmental and Community Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Mayor Eric Adams and Commissioner Ydanis Rodriguez on DOT transparency and notice requirements. DOT feels strongly that high-quality public input makes our projects better, so it is worth taking the time to do well. We've been working to strengthen our relationships across the city, including with faith communities and immigrant communities, to ensure we're able to broaden the feedback that helps to shape our projects. We're always happy to take any feedback that you have about critical stakeholders and strategies as we develop projects in your communities. At the same time, we want to acknowledge that there is a balance we need to strike between depth of community engagement and getting stuff done for New Yorkers. We need to make our streets safer, create a better public realm, and help people get where they need to go quickly and efficiently. It is important to do this while working closely with communities, but we also want to make sure that we right-size engagement processes to make sure we are delivering our work equitably around the city and moving aggressively. As the mayor announced last week, we are doubling our intersection safety commitment to 2,000 intersections per year, including 1,000 with daylighting, which I know has been long pushed for by our partners in the council. And we are grateful for your partnership in making sure that we can get these needed safety enhancements in quickly. I know that there has been concern about how DOT engages with communities, and I want to take a moment to talk about some of the ways that we have been working to expand how we do this and make sure we are connecting with people and reflecting local concerns in our work. When DOT develops a project, our borough commissioners develop outreach plans that reflect each unique community. This includes formal engagements with community boards and briefings for council members and other elected officials, but also ways to reach out directly to the public, including workshops, surveys, on-site walkthroughs, and flyers posted throughout the project area and often handed directly to businesses and homeowners. We work directly with local stakeholders, such as business improvement districts, faith organizations, older adult centers, and other locally important institutions. We also work closely with our peer agencies, including the police department, fire department, sanitation, parks, small business services, and other agencies where relevant. One focus of this administration is making sure that we are hearing directly from New Yorkers, many of whom may not have the ability to attend formal meetings in the evening. Our street ambassadors meet New Yorkers where they live, work, and socialize. They engage people in conversations about DOT projects at locations and times that are convenient for them. They often do outreach in active neighborhood spaces during the morning rush, in the evenings, or over the weekend. The street ambassadors also do merchant surveys where they walk business to business along a corridor to speak directly with business owners and get feedback about DOT proposals. The street ambassador team is comprised of multilingual...
Sorry, you cannot be on your phone here. You have to step out if you need to be on the phone. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. The street ambassador team is comprised of multilingual public engagement specialists who speak 10 languages. This model has been successful in getting feedback from community members and for sharing information about DOT's street improvement projects. For many projects, we get thousands of responses, far more than we could get at any individual meeting, and particularly focused on local residents and stakeholders. Going forward, we want to continue to find innovative ways to make sure we are getting important community feedback and make sure we are communicating clearly about what is happening on our streets. I also want to acknowledge that we often get many more requests than we are able to fulfill, a situation that will continue to be a challenge through the current budget crisis. We do our best to prioritize work so that we are addressing both the most critical locations and also performing work equitably citywide. We appreciate your partnership in helping to prioritize requests and your understanding when our resources are limited. Turning to the legislation before the Council today. First, Intro 172, sponsored by Councilmember Hudson. This bill would require DOT to provide 60 days advance notice to affected council members, community boards, and community organizations prior to the designation, permanent change to, or removal of an open street. DOT is proud to run the largest and most successful open streets program in the country. The program transforms streets into public spaces open to all. These transformations allow for a range of activities that promote economic development, support schools, facilitate pedestrian and bike mobility, and provide new ways for New Yorkers to enjoy cultural programming and build community. DOT shares the Council's interest in providing sufficient notice and opportunity for community feedback for open streets. We recently proposed rules for the program that would achieve a lot of these same goals, and we would be happy to discuss the best way forward with the Council. Next, Intro 810, sponsored by Councilmember Bottcher. This bill lays out requirements for news racks maintenance and placement. DOT has previously supported news rack reforms and would be happy to discuss this bill further with the Council. Next, Intro 922, sponsored by Councilmember Arreola. This bill would require DOT to notify local community board and council member 15 days before removing a parking space. DOT has serious concerns with this bill as it would slow the pace of operations and be extremely burdensome. Streets are fluid spaces with parking spaces where parking spaces are added and removed every day. Providing and receiving such notice would be overwhelming for both the agency and the recipients. For permanent removals, DOT already gives notice before implementing major transportation projects that involve the full-time removal of a parking lane based on laws passed by the Council. This bill creates a much wider universe of notice by including both permanent and temporary parking space removals that could include temporary removals for construction or resurfacing. Overall, this would slow down a significant portion of DOT's work. Next, Intro 1030, sponsored by Councilmember Williams. This bill would require DOT to make available and searchable on its website information on speed reducer and traffic control device requests. I'm happy to say that DOT already has such a page on our website. If you go to the Contact the Commissioner page on our website, you can find the link to the Check Case Status map. You can enter the case number or search an address to check on the status of a request. If a 311 service request was submitted, there is also a link on the page that takes you to the 311 page to look up your previously submitted request. We would be happy to discuss this page further with the council and how we could make this information more accessible. Next, Intro 1033, sponsored by Councilmember Ariola. This bill would require DOT to consult with the fire department before approving an open street application and certain bicycle lane projects. Further, this bill would require DOT to notify affected firehouses before approving an open street application, a bicycle lane project, and a major transportation project. DOT works closely with our sister agencies and believes that such coordination is important. We already consult with FDNY on these projects, including meeting regularly with the FDNY Bureau of Operations Planning Division and each FDNY borough commander to discuss our projects and solicit their feedback on potential issues that may arise, including concerns raised by local firehouses. These are important conversations that we will continue to have, but such communication must continue to happen in a centralized manner. We defer to our sister agency on how best to disseminate information between the borough commanders, FDNY operations, and local firehouses. Next, Intro 1120, sponsored by Councilmember Carr. This bill would require DOT to assess at least 100 speed camera locations each year to determine the feasibility of installing a raised speed reducer and, where feasible, installing such device within 1 year. Additionally, DOT would be required to annually report on each assessed location, and in locations where both a speed reducer and camera are present, provide a recommendation for whether a camera is still necessary. DOT has concerns with this bill as it would slow down speed hump installations and reduce the reach of our safety interventions. With this bill, instead of installing speed humps in new locations based on the many requests that we get, we would need to install them where a safety treatment already exists. Moreover, the two tools are best used in different types of locations. Speed humps and speed cameras are two tools in our toolbox that address speeding, but we have many others that may be more appropriate for a particular location, such as a larger street redesign or signal timing changes. As always, please send us locations where you have safety concerns and we can evaluate them for the best treatment. In conclusion, I would like to thank the Council for the opportunity to testify before you today on DOT's efforts to engage with and notify the public about our projects. We now welcome your questions.
Thank you. Let's start with pothole repairs and repair requests. In fiscal 2023, DOT repaired 176,853 potholes, 4% fewer than in the same period last year. According to DOT, this was due to a mild winter and an increase in street resurfacing work, which reduced the formation of potholes. In fiscal year 2023, how many requests did DOT receive through 311 from individuals reporting a pothole or cave-in on a street, including on bike lanes?
I don't have the 311 data given the number of requests, but I can tell you the number of potholes that we've filled are 156,218 locations throughout the city.
While we're here, can someone check back and get that number for us,
Let me
please?
see if I can get that.
Of the 176,853 potholes repaired in fiscal '23, let me take that one back because you're going to get the 311 request because I have a second follow-up question to that. Pothole repair locations are listed on open data. Are pothole repair requests also included on open data? So the repair locations are listed, but are the repair requests also included there?
We'll try and find that at the same time.
Okay. And what is the process for addressing a pothole 311 complaint? And if the pothole or cave-in is due to a third-party construction, what is the process for repair?
I'm making up, some subcontractor is out doing
I'll just give you a like factual example.
Yeah.
So on Merrick Boulevard, near 222nd Street, there has been several instances where there's a cave-in. Oftentimes someone will put a cone there, but there's work being done, and when 311 calls are made, they are told that there's a third-party project that's happening there. But there's been no permanent fixture to that.
Just as a bit of background, cave-ins are often due to erosion, due to often burst water mains and things like that. So I know that our sister agency, DEP, would have a role to play within that. I would want to be checking in with them. You said it was Merrick Boulevard?
Between 221st and 222nd.
So I'd like
There's
to
also another, location in Far Rockaway that's on the same block as St. John's Hospital on Beach 19th Street, and we've called that in a few times to DOT and DEP, and I know like there have been temporary fixes done, but it's still caving in. So if you're saying that there's something underground that could be contributing to it, what's the process with fixing it?
I'm not sure at the specific locations, but given that we have a relationship and given that we often attribute cave-ins to erosion and burst water mains, we should check in with our sister agency, DEP. I can follow up with your staff after this so that we can send out inspectors.
But generally speaking, what is the coordination between DOT and DEP? So if a 311 comes in for a cave-in or a pothole, is it going to DOT or is it going to DEP? And once it goes there, are the two sister agencies working together to address it?
Yeah, exactly. So we often have coordination meetings, and we used to have City Hall coordinated infrastructure agency coordination meeting to go through things like this. On a staff level, I know the engineers in both departments work daily with each other.
But you said used to, so what happens now?
I can't speak to it now because I'm no longer in my role at City Hall. I'm sure that our engineers are still working together.
But just on procedure, if someone puts a 311 request in as a pothole, we will send an inspector out to go look at it because our intention is to fill that pothole within 2 days. If it turns out that it's not what we would think of as a pothole, but is this cave-in or other type of request, we refer it to DEP and we work closely with them. We often do a make safe, we will put some asphalt or something there just to make the location safe, acknowledging that that doesn't fix the underlying problem. But we don't want to just keep putting asphalt into the hole forever. It is at that point on DEP to send their inspector to see if they can figure out why the cave-in is happening. And certainly if they need our help in the repair, we will work with them on that.
Thank you for the response. Next, resurfacing streets. DOT previously had a goal to repave 1,300 lane miles annually, which was reduced to 1,100 lane miles per year. Last year, in our budget response, the council urged the administration to increase baseline funding for street resurfacing, allowing DOT to repave 1,300 annually. This funding was not added at adoption. New Yorkers can request resurfacing of a street that is rough, pitted, or cracked beyond repair. Please walk us through how DOT handles those street resurfacing requests.
Sure, thank you, and it's a good question. First, just with respect to the 1,300 versus 1,100, I think we're very happy with how many miles of streets we've repaved over the past few years. But one of the things that we really want to do is get into a sustainable cycle of resurfacing, where over the years we've had times where we resurface a lot of streets and then many fewer. Our analysis shows that 1,100 is actually a very sustainable level, where if we can maintain that over time, we think it does keep our streets in a state of good repair. In terms of how we select streets for resurfacing, we certainly take 311s and notifications about potholes and street conditions into account. But we also have a team that inspects our streets throughout the year to make sure that we're providing real observations, because we don't only want to be responsive to where people might call more often. So the goal is to inspect all of our streets at least once every 2 years. In reality, we get to them much more frequently than that, and we do what we call a street assessment, where we look at things like cracks and street cuts to determine whether a street is in good, fair, or poor condition.
You do that on all streets in New York City?
Yes.
Is there like a map available that tracks when you do these?
It doesn't track when, but we have a map that shows what the most recent assessment was. And that's, we can get you the link, but it's not publicly available.
Okay, thank you. How many of those requests did DOT receive in fiscal year 2023? And out of the ones requested, how many were addressed?
Let's see if we can get that while we're here.
Mm-hmm. And while you're at it, I don't know if you have the answer to this. If not, if you could get it, does DOT have a list by district and borough that tracks the resurfacing? So pretty much what I was trying to get to, wanting to see that. So you're saying you have a link that's on open data that will break it down?
Yes, and we typically do it by community district, so that's a number that we would have readily available. Mm-hmm. If you were interested by any other geography, we could put that together, but it's not how we track it regularly.
Okay. And while we're talking about like the road safety, if you notice, there are 2 photos blown up here. This is alongside Robert Couch Senior Center in my district. And I've received a number of complaints from the senior constituents about dangerous conditions on the streets that I've witnessed firsthand myself. What kind of senior outreach does DOT conduct?
So we have a safety education team that what they do is they work both with schools but also with older adult centers, and they regularly visit older adult centers around the city to both inform. We do a lot of trying to work with seniors about what they should be looking for and helping them navigate our streets safely, but also taking feedback that we can then bring back about issues that they see in their communities. But one of the things that we've been working very closely, but both with individual senior centers, but also the Department for the Aging, is about providing clear space in front of senior centers for pickup and drop-off, where some senior centers have these spaces where an accessorized vehicle or a private car or a taxi could pick up and drop someone off right at the curb, but some don't, and we know that some of those places can have a lot of double parking, or if you're in an accessorized vehicle, you may not be able to get out in a safe way at all. So we've been working with DFTA to prioritize locations and add these pickup and drop-off locations. We also have senior safety priority districts around the city, which were done based on an analysis of where senior injuries are most likely to happen and where they have been happening. And we use that as a guide to help make sure that we're doing enough projects in those locations.
So I want to ask about how the decisions are made when to put in crosswalks. For example, the Robert Couch Senior Center, again, that are the photos to my right, believe that there should be a mid-block crosswalk, a pedestrian island, or even a basic crosswalk on the corner. And we feel it's necessary to enable seniors and really pedestrians in general to cross this two-way street that has a lot of traffic. What goes into making those determinations? Because I will say my office has been working with DOT for a while trying to get some safety measures there. And there are a lot of near fatal crashes that take place there. I don't know if you could fully see, but where you see the back of those vehicles is along the side of where the entry point for that senior center is. It's in the middle of the block. It's not to any of the extreme corners. And the corners are is actually very far from that point. So there is no crosswalk anywhere nearby there. Also, because there are merchants across the street, there's also open dining across the street. So there's a shed there. There is limited visibility. So there needs to be something done there so these seniors who cross there every single day can cross there safely. So I hear you about having education sessions. I would argue that a senior has enough experience to know how to cross the street, but it's incumbent on the city agency, DOT specifically, to ensure that our streets are safe for pedestrians. And so I just wanted to bring that to the attention in terms of wanting to make sure that DOT is taking these type of requests seriously, because I know my senior center is not the only one. I'm just using it as an example. And where does the local elected officials' input or the impacted community's input, like as in this case, factor into the decisions that are made by DOT? Because, for example, again, with this, the community board is in support of the DOT coming and putting common, like pedestrian infrastructure in place there. Obviously, I'm supportive of it and other local community-based organizations as well. So how does DOT factor those into the decision-making?
Sure, and just to be, we absolutely agree. Like we go and do education because we think that that's an important part of the process, but education alone doesn't substitute. We do want to make sure we're making physical changes to our streets to make sure that they're safe. And safety is really the guiding light for everything that we do on the street. When we want to do a new crosswalk or do a new traffic signal, we don't want to do it or not do it just based on the loudest voice in the room or who asks most frequently. We want to make sure that we're doing that change in a way that really promotes the safety of the street. And we've had issues over the years where perhaps something has been installed because it was desired, but where it didn't get that study and it didn't have the effect that we wanted. So what we do when we get a request, I'll talk first about the new traffic signal because I know we're studying that at the corner here, and then I can talk about the mid-block crossing. But when we get a request for a new traffic signal or a new always stop, we go out and observe the location and collect a lot of data. We collect traffic data, both at the peak hour but across the whole day, often on a weekend. We collect pedestrian data. We look at how many people are crossing the street, in what directions, and are they able to find space to cross the street in between traffic. We also look at the crash data, and we look at the crash data very carefully because we look at crashes in different ways. If there was a crash that was caused by a drunk driver at 3 a.m., that's not the type of crash that a new traffic signal necessarily would have affected. But if there's a lot of, say, right-angle crashes where vehicles are running into their sides, or failure to yield type crashes, then that's an indication that there might be something that a better traffic control would help. And so we look at what we call the number of preventable crashes. And I say that word carefully because we hope that all crashes are preventable through various means, but being crashes that would be specifically prevented by the new signal. And we look at all of that. There's a set of guidelines put out by the federal government that we use to guide us. But at the end of the day, we also know that those are guidelines. And if we see an issue that doesn't exactly conform to those guidelines, we are willing to use our professional engineering judgment to do what we think is safest. When we get a request for a mid-block crossing, we look at many of those same items, but one of the key things is, how many people are attempting to cross the street mid-block? Is it something where there's demand on both sides of the street and we see people out there? We know that's never a full representation of people who might want to cross at that, but we at least try to see if there's some activity going on there. And again, based on these federal requirements, we use those as a guideline to help us evaluate the location. But ultimately, the most important thing is that we are doing a serious engineering study at each of these locations. We're not just putting something in or not putting something in based on our whims. We are trying to be very thoughtful and careful about how we control the street.
Thank you for that. And when you say that you look at the number of people that cross mid-block, do you look at the type of people that cross mid-block?
Absolutely. One of the things we look at is the speed of people crossing the street, and that's especially important in a location like this because older adults tend to walk slower. And this is actually something we talk about on the education side as well, is you may be used to crossing the street and not having a problem, but as you might walk more slowly or might have vision issues, you might experience the street in a different way. But if when we look at people crossing, we look at their speed, we look at their age as well. So we look at school children, different from an adult, different from an elderly person, and we take that all into account.
So with the Robert Couch Senior Center, I could only hope that DOT is going to come and put a crosswalk and some infrastructure there, because the senior center in the middle of the block.
Yeah,
Sounds about right?
we definitely have the request and we're looking at it.
Okay, and how long does the request take?
It typically takes a few months, but just because we need to go out and actually collect the data. We do get a tremendous number of requests. We do try to prioritize based on locations that are brought to us by community leaders.
Would you say that you wait till unfortunate incidents happen to speed up some of these requests? And I ask this because, thankfully recently DOT installed an all-way stop sign in Rockaway, but it was following a crash. On North Conduit, DOT thankfully came and remilled the road and repainted the sign. This morning at 8 a.m. there was another crash. I got another alert from a constituent that lives along that corridor. So I'm just trying to understand, how do we ensure safety for all and not have to wait to prioritize because of unfortunate circumstances?
Sure, no, and that's really the right question. We try to be as proactive as we can. We look at things like traffic speeds, we look at community requests and where they come in, and we would always rather do something before something bad happens. At the same time, if there is a serious crash, if there is a fatality or a serious injury, we also want to make sure we are going to those locations and seeing if there's something we ought to be fixing. So at the end of the day, we need to do both. We would rather have been proactive and prevented it, but if something does happen, we want to make sure that we are going and addressing any conditions that we have at that location.
Thank you. I'm going to yield and come back and ask questions so that my colleagues can ask some questions. So we'll start with Councilmember Williams, followed by Narcisse.
Thank you. And thank you for your testimony. I just had a question, and a part of the bill, and I know you all do share status of speed mitigator requests. A lot of times when we get denials, which is often, and I force my office to email Commissioner Garcia each time and ask for a more detailed explanation. The explanation is really not detailed. You often quote the federal criteria, and so I wanted to know, where in the charter does it say that we have to utilize the federal criteria to cite speed mitigators on New York City streets?
Sure. So, as you know, it's not in the city charter that we have to use federal requirements. And we try to use the federal requirements as a guideline. There's a lot of research that have gone into them. We try to make sure that we're putting our resources into the places where they deliver safety the best, and we want to do that based on this depth of research as to where it's best used. At the same time, I wouldn't want to say that we follow requirements blindly. We use it as a baseline and we use it to guide our work. But if there's a place where we feel like, for whatever reason, the federal requirements are really not appropriate, we can look at that too. We don't want to evaluate each location just sort of on a whim. We want to make sure we are basing it on data and basing it on guidelines and starting the conversation there.
Okay, I would love to have like a further conversation on that, because for an applicant, it's really hard to know whether or not you're solely basing it off of the federal criteria or if you're using some other type of mechanism. And so, like, yeah, that sounds good for you to say that, but often every denial oftentimes cites the fact that for whatever reason it doesn't meet some type of federal criteria. And my problem with a lot of sort of macro criteria is that, and DOT in general, is that oftentimes it is not unique to particular communities and the unique needs that they have. And so I know it's great, it's based off of lots of research and all those wonderful things, but it doesn't necessarily always meet the mark, especially around speed reduction. So would love to talk more about that, because I do have like a lot of issues around like the response that's always like, oh, it doesn't fit the federal criteria. The other thing, which is sort of similar to this, is I learned in the hearing that if a person puts in the application and says, I want a speed bump, well, you all will do a study for a speed bump, but maybe they're eligible for a speed hump, or maybe they are eligible for a stop sign, but you only do the study based off of what the person writes in their application. And so another question is, how come there's no like proactive trigger, or once you've done the due diligence of a study, so like you're actually utilizing your resources to conduct a study, how come in that same very instance do you not maybe offer suggestions for other types of speed mitigators that might be eligible at a particular site?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and first, just to your first point, I think we hear you that we're not communicating clearly enough about this, and that's a very reasonable conversation to have, because the goal is really to help people understand why we do or don't make a decision. So, point well taken. And then in terms of the second question, obviously, we're a large agency, and there's a workflow where something gets assigned to look at a particular subject, and we have inspectors trained in particular areas. But what I would say is, if we get a request and it's a high crash location, or we look at it and there's high speeds, but for whatever reason physically, there's too many driveways or something and we can't place the speed hump, if we really see a crash history, we do look for more things. I think we often get a lot of requests at locations that don't have a lot of crashes or don't have evidence of speeding. And so at those locations, we sort of say it didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah, like I know I'm like a pretty rational, thank you so much, Chair, for allowing me additional time. I'm a pretty rational person, so like I understand that, but there are areas where legitimately we've even spoken to the police department where there have been many crashes, and still to this day, as I'm sitting here right now at December 4th at 2:13, there has been no sort of suggestions for one particular area I have in my mind, but there's a few of those locations, and then some of these locations are actually next to sensitive areas, so schools, daycare centers, and I feel like my office proactively is like suggesting things to DOT, but I'm of the mindset that you guys are supposed to be the experts. And so I feel like the different types of suggestions should come from the agency, not the council member's office. And then I shouldn't have to, like, literally myself, I should not have to get on the phone to push the agency to try to find creative solutions to reduce speed in particular areas. So I don't want to take up too much time. I would love to hear your feedback, but I want to follow up on this. I have followed up many times. I've spoken to the unit that does speed safety around schools. You've come to my district a few times, but still, like, so many areas really need to have some type of reduction in speed, and I just don't feel like you all are proactive and transparent in your communication and genuinely trying to find ways to reduce speeding in areas that have the data that shows that multiple crashes are happening.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the advocacy have around these high crash areas. And, you know, you don't have to reach out to us, we'll reach out to you, and we'll follow up, and we can go through a list and speak intelligently about those locations and move forward.
Next, we'll hear from Councilmember Narcisse, but before we go to her, just piggybacking on that recent comment by Councilmember Williams in terms of sensitive spaces and DOT notifying us and reaching out, I will say that there are 2 elementary schools that have had crashes more recently, and they have long requested speed humps in those spaces. So there were 2 kindergartners in particular that were struck by vehicles, and they had, again, long requested speed bumps, which takes entirely too long to get one approved or denied, and most times they are denied, and we have to come back and really challenge DOT. So that is a concern in terms of how those are approached. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to work more closely with DOT to understand the metrics that are being used. And I know this was something I brought up in one of the earlier hearings after I had recently been appointed chair for this committee. So it's something that we should definitely follow up on.
Absolutely. We'd be happy. Like, I think we all have a better conversation if we can help each other understand, you know, what we look at and what you look at. The goal isn't to be adversarial. I think we all want the same thing of getting to safe streets and, you know, using our resources as well as we can. I think we're well aware of the backlog in terms of speed humps, and, you know, we all are aware of the budget issues and our ability to do more. You know, we want to make sure that we're prioritizing our work as well as we can.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. Good afternoon for being here. When you do engagement, community engagement, is that you rely solely on the community board? I'm not saying community board are not great. I've been part of community board, but they reach out to a small segment of the communities because it's the same people you see over and over. So do you do outreach yourself?
I mean, outreach is
When you're coming to community board?
so just to be clear, the community board outreach process is one piece of many of the strategies that we employ. So we have street ambassadors that we mentioned in the testimony that speak over 10 languages, and we have, you know, pop-up tents and weekend events, and we proactively go to senior centers and schools to make sure that we're reaching people where they are. Community boards, as we mentioned, are an important organizational venue for us and to do public presentation, and it's a place to have on record the things that we're, you know, proposing, but it is just one piece of how we attempt to reach communities.
Let's be clear. I'm supporting the fact you're coming to community board. I'm just saying this segment that they're reaching out, being part of community board is just like the same people over and over, but you have a large segment of people that you want to reach out to. Having said that, zip cards. When you have, I see you laughing, because people are always shocked when they kind of pop up in their community, especially 17 and 18, right? So how you reach out to the communities to let them know they're going to lose their parking space?
You know, certainly the community boards are, again, one of those pieces. If there is a specific process on zip cars and the car share program.
Yeah, so, I mean, on those, we do work largely through the community board. We send the community board a list. We require the companies to go to the board and make a presentation and have a conversation so that we can get that feedback. So we do try to be very public and open about where these are. We don't want it to be a surprise.
Okay, I appreciate that. But the rating, when I'm scrolling down your website, everything is green, and I was looking for some part of my district that have a lot of issues, but I don't see that because everything say green. That's mean green is, what's green stand for?
This is the street assessment rating website. So I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to read it.
No, green's supposed to be rating good.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm seeing a lot of street are buckling on me. And you have Rockaway Parkway in Canarsie, you have by the Bayview houses, which I always tell people, by Bayview houses where there's housing, public housing, that's the place that we should have nice, smooth streets. You know why? Because I want those children, when they get out, at least they see something beautiful. They don't see all those streets, because that 1 second, I've been talking about it. So I would like to see that instead of green,
Yeah, if you could let us know we got
Some
that
of the
one.
streets are horrible.
If there's others that we need to take another look at, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, Garrison Beach, in Garrison Avenue, East 80th Street is buckle in. People are going like a rough ride. There's a lot of bad streets, but they're all green in my area.
Our team is going to follow up with you. And
Okay.
We'll get a list of those locations.
Thank you. Intersection of Ralph Avenue and Flatlands. This intersection's been a problem for decades.
with the
People
big
complain all the
school.
time next to the schools. So can we look into that? Because I don't know what to do anymore. I wrote letters, I did everything, and I'm talking about a long time. So what's going on?
Yes, no, I'm familiar with that intersection. I know there's a lot of turning movements there because people come up.
Buses,
Yeah.
people. So can we have a signal? What's the problem that we cannot get a signal for that street?
Like a turn signal. Yeah.
Turning signal.
So we'll take another look. I know we looked at this a few years ago. We made some improvements, and there's some capital work happening, but we will take another look. 'Cause
People got hit many times.
we
at that
know that
point.
that's a tough one, and we know that there's the school right there. There's there's also the city yard right there. You know, that's a tough intersection. We've looked at it over the years, but we can look some
But
more.
why was the problem? Because since 1995, 1996, I'm talking about, that those things been talking about how many kids, now the population increased, the buses are increasing, everything is increasing, yet we cannot have a turn-on signal.
So we'll take a look.
Okay. I hope it's more than look. It's actually should be happening. People are hitting left and right on that corner. So I thank you for your time. I don't want to keep on pushing, but I would like to see some of my 46 district and throughout the city of New York. So thank you for putting your time, and I know the commissioner is doing, amazing work, and I know we cannot just bombard him with everything, but I'm looking forward to see the green mean the green. So thank you.
We'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, and we've been joined by Councilmember Lee. Next, we'll hear from Councilmember Farias.
Thank you, Chair Brooks Powers. I'd like to ask some questions around parking space removal. How often does a DOT project remove a parking space? Do we track that? Do we know?
We track when one of our street improvement projects change parking. I think part of the challenge is that there are many different types of things that may add or remove parking on the street. You know, whether it's daylighting, whether it's changing a parking space to a loading zone, whether it's temporary uses like movie shoots or construction. There's a tremendous amount that happens, and some of those are we always know where there's construction. We don't always know exactly how many spots.
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I'm
taking.
more so interested in like the permanent removal of a parking spot. Do we track that, and how frequently are we reviewing when we're removing spots from a given community? Or how large of a removal of spots from a given community?
Yes, when it's part of our projects, or whether when it's part of something that we do, we have a extensive sign management system that tracks when we change signs.
And is the agency mandated to report back frequently or annually to the council on the removal of spots and its numeration?
It seems not yet.
Okay. And when the removal of a parking space is temporary, how quickly is the space typically restored? And is this communicated to the community in any way?
It's quite variable depending on the reason that it was taken. You know, you can imagine street work, we would all like it to be done quickly, but it often takes a while.
Sure.
The permit has a length to it, and the information on that permit is available.
And just for a sense of scale, there are, 600,000 construction permits last year and 3,000 business permits. So it's every day. There's,
Okay,
many
great.
thousands.
And typically that's referred to the community boards and the community and the council members. I think sometimes we get construction projects and we know where they're going to be, and that's usually how we hope the constituency finds out, correct? Okay, great. Chair, I have one more question. Does the construction of a protected bike lane also include spatial needs for EMS vehicles and fire trucks, like it does for sanitation trucks?
Yes, Whenever we actually work very closely with the fire department, we have a special model of the, not just a generic fire truck, but the model of fire truck that is used in the city. They bought a new fire truck a few years ago that was a little bit bigger. We updated all of our standards to make sure it accommodates that truck.
Great. I noticed in the protected bike lanes around my office that it's quite a big gap. I know that sanitation trucks are huge, but just these bills made me think, are all the spatial truck needs that we use as a municipality included? So that's great to hear. And the last thing I just want to say is I do, and I don't know if we have this, and feel free to answer after my statement, what the level of enforcement and review looks like for the Zipcar spots. My colleague brought up some of the issues with the parking spots. I've brought it up to the companies that I like to randomly drive around to see the Zipcar spots in my district and if they're actually filled with a Zipcar. So I've brought to the attention the many areas that they need to re-review to consider on whether or not they remain Zipcar spots, because my community as a transit desert and isn't necessarily multimodal in terms of connectedness of our transit options, still is a car-reliant community. As I drive, my mom drives with intergenerational households. And so any of those spots that we can gain back will also be helpful. And so, yeah, I just want to know, do we have any enforcement? Or are we solely relying on the companies to do some of that review and enforcement?
So just first off, those are signed, and the NYPD traffic enforcement agents would be a part of that. And definitely understand the existence of transit deserts throughout the city, and there are a bunch of different ways that people have different commutation patterns. One of the things that I think is really powerful about our car share program is that there's some percentage of car owners that choose to make a different choice rather than to not purchase a car in the first place. And we've seen that in the data, that people made choices to maybe not have a car purchase. And so understanding that there is, in New York City, it's a game of inches. Everybody understands the needs and desires to have access to the curb. But as an eye toward the future, it is one of the benefits is that, some number of folks are able to avoid a big purchase.
No, 100%. I mean, I have been somewhat supportive of its expansion in my district because I do understand with the numbers and the data that I've seen, even just in my 4x4 block radius, I know several families that use the 4 spots in where I reside currently, and that alleviates a huge $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 car burden that is a depreciating asset for a family.
But just to underscore your point, if there's an issue in the neighborhood, you're the local expert. By all means, let us take a look. Flag it for us.
And we do get data on how much it's used, and we're giving these companies a very valuable resource, and we're doing it because we think it's providing value to the community.
For sure.
But if they're not using it, or the community's not using it, then we can take those spaces back. So we can base it on real usage.
Yeah, that is my plan of review this upcoming year, to kind of look at where the spots are, especially with some of the expansion that we've seen in my community boards. Yep. But I appreciate the extra time, Chair, and your additional information.
Thank you. Next, I want to touch on federal funding transparency. During this fiscal year, how much, if any, federal funding has DOT secured and under which programs?
It's a little bit of a mouthful, but let me read it out. So to date, New York City Department of Transportation has been awarded $46.3 million in funding for projects including a $7.25 million planning grant to expand New York City's greenways, and over $18 million in capital funding to reconstruct Delancey Street. $6 million.
Sorry, repeat the 18 million.
Of course. $18 million in capital to reconstruct Delancey Street, $6 million to rehabilitate bus stops and improve bus transportation on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. $3 million to reconstruct an off-site storage facility for large parts for our ferry operations, and $7 million to the Trust for Governor's Island for a shoreside electric ferry infrastructure.
For Staten Island ferry infrastructure, you said?
And just some high-level numbers, we've submitted over 24 grants for over $1 billion in federal funds.
Are the rest of them still pending decisions? Okay.
And of course, you may hear from us for letters of support. I know everybody here has been super generous with their letters of support on our behalf.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for some of the money to start flowing for some of these other much-needed infrastructure repairs. But I hear you on the Governor Island Ferry piece. I know that both Councilmember Farias and myself have held a few hearings around ferry expansion and wanting to see that in parts of Brooklyn, parts of the Bronx, and as well as the eastern portion of the Rockaways. Has anything been done by DOT to explore grant fundings in any of those communities?
Just to be clear, the Department of Transportation only operates
Staten Island, I understand. But in terms of when we think about expansion, is it only going to be done through EDC, or is DOT able to apply for these grants to be able to help New York City expand access?
Yeah, so the planning and the operation of those routes is done by EDC. We would be a partner if they're applying for federal funds because we're sort of the official arm of the city. Where
So I should change the question. Have you worked with EDC to apply for any grants to explore expansions beyond Governor's Island in any of the neighborhoods I just mentioned?
Yeah, we do work with them. I think that there's some challenges around federal funding and the ferry program in terms of the federal requirements don't necessarily always work well with how EDC operates the program. So I think if the right circumstance comes up, we're happy to work with them. But
So what works for Governor's Island?
Right, so we do that on Governor's Island. What we try to do is put as much of the ferry money as possible into the city-operated assets like Staten Island Ferry and Governor's Island, because we find that that's a very efficient use of the federal grant money.
But what I'm not clear about is with Governor's Island, like something worked in that application that DOT was able to secure $7 million. So what aspect of it?
Sure, and we worked with Governor's Island Corporation in that case, and they had an application. We worked with them. They came to us with the proposal. We're a little bit of a pass-through in that case, and in the right circumstance, we defer to EDC on the program planning and operation if there was a place where they wanted to apply for federal funds.
So EDC was a part of that as well?
No, for the New York City ferry, if EDC comes to us and wants to work with us, we'd be happy to.
Did EDC play any role in this application for Governor Island?
I don't believe so, but we can double check.
Yeah, I'd be interested in knowing. Does DOT publish federal funding grants in a manner easily accessible to the public, similar to the Hurricane Sandy funding tracker?
We can check and find out.
And it all gets published through NMTIC, which is the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization. It is available. That I don't know that I would necessarily say easy to access.
Going back to speed reducer installation, speed bumps, DOT has a target to install 250 speed reducers annually. In fiscal 2023, DOT installed 231 speed reducers, a 12% decrease from fiscal 22, and a 27% decrease from fiscal 2019. Why did DOT miss its target of 250 speed reducers in 2023?
So one of the challenges that we've had is that as we've resurfaced more and more streets around the city, we're increasingly encountering streets that already have a speed hump. And after we resurface that street, we have to go back and put the speed hump. So the same crews that would install a new speed hump would also have to go back and do these reinstallations of currently existing ones. And as our inventory on the street has grown and grown, we have to do more and more of these reinstallations. So we actually did over 500 installations of speed humps, but a large number of them were these reinstallations. So to the extent that we have a fixed budget of a couple crews that can do this, as the inventory grows and grows, we have to continue to do those reinstallations. So we would like to do more. I don't mean to say that we wouldn't, just that is what has caused that slowdown a little bit.
So it sounds like you pretty much need more staff.
Look, I think as an agency, we do a tremendous amount. I think when you look at our output, and both in terms of what we do and in terms of the safety results on the street.
I understand you're not going to want to say it on the record. Let me phrase it differently. With the current crew that you have right now, it is not sufficient to meet the demand that is required of DOT currently. Yes or no?
We certainly get more requests than we're able to accommodate.
So that means that so with the current crew that you have right now and the mandates before DOT, it is not sufficient to meet these goals.
We do the best we can with what we have.
Got it. When New Yorkers submit requests for speed bump installation, repairs, removals, or report on illegal speed reducers, how long on average does it take DOT to respond to these requests? And while you're looking for that, another question, can you differentiate between installing new speed humps and reinstalling speed humps in future MMRs as well?
Yeah, so within the MMR, we currently talk about new speed humps. So we can certainly take that back about whether we can include the reinstalls as well. In terms of the notifications, there's sort of a multi-step process, right? We get a request, we try to send an acknowledgement right away so that people know that we have it and that it's in the queue. In terms of when we can actually do the inspection, that I think as you know, we have quite a long queue for that, and it's not a specific, we always get back within this many months. We respond as we're able to evaluate the request.
So I'm not sure how long.
It varies based on when we're able to
What's
go.
the average?
Yeah, we'd have to check.
We'll follow up and find the average.
Okay. I hope you're keeping track of all the things that you're working on getting back to me before you guys leave this desk. Really quickly, going back to the potholes, I just want to put on the record at Murdoch Avenue and 204th Street, there are 2 potholes there with cones that have been there for at least a week. So with these, I know earlier you were saying within, I think, 2 days, you guys try to fill these potholes. That's another example. In Southeast Queensway, that's not necessarily the case. Capital plan transparency. Can DOT walk through its public reporting processes on capital projects undertaken by the department? Does DOT list publicly information about ongoing projects like location, estimated start and completion date, current project phase, estimated costs, and any cost overruns or delays?
This information is typically public through CAPSTAT. So a lot of it, in terms of street reconstruction projects, comes from our partners at the Department of Design and Construction. So I would defer to them on those specific projects. But there is public information about all of this.
The Parks Department features a capital project tracker on its website that provides information about each ongoing project. Is this something DOT has explored doing as well?
I guess I can't speak to what we might have explored in the past. I think we've used the sort of centralized city system. Again, a lot of it is run through our partners at DDC. Their website has quite a lot of information about ongoing capital projects, including a map of projects that let you learn more about them. But if it's not, if it's something you're interested in, I think we could help facilitate a conversation between us and DDC about whether it's communicating well or whether other tools would be better.
We've come across an issue in how traffic fatalities and injuries, are reported. Can you provide data on traffic fatalities and injuries for both fiscal and calendar years for 2021, 2022, and 2023? We were trying to really look to see if there's been an increase or decline, and what that is. It was hard to really get a true number because between DOT, the advocates, there's always, I guess, a back and forth in terms of fiscal year versus calendar year. So it would be good to just have an idea of both.
And just to spend one more moment, I think that there is also a difference in the data sets between what the NYPD will put out, because there is investigations that happen, and the difference between those numbers is often the results of what those investigations yield. So you'll often see a discrepancy between those numbers. We're happy to share a litany of data with you, and I can even present this, fatality sheet that's broken out quite robustly.
Yeah. And just we do reconcile fatality data with NYPD on a weekly basis. Sometimes there's old information that is out, but we do work very hard to make sure we have the same numbers. One of the reasons it's complicated is this sounds funny, but the numbers change a little bit over time. We might have an instance where someone was struck by a vehicle in 2020. They were severely injured, but sometimes they don't die until a couple years later. We go back and add that fatality to the 2020 numbers because their death was a result of that fatality. So the number might be one higher than it was at the end of 2020. And that's, we try to be very open about that. But the process is, if someone dies as the result of their car crash, then that needs to be counted in the numbers, even if it happens well after the actual incident. And it's a little bit rarer, but you sometimes have one that goes the other way, just in that there might be a fatality that, after investigation turns out to have been on private property or some other way where it's not an on-street traffic fatality, and those get removed from the numbers, not because we don't care, but because it's tracking a slightly different thing.
But with that in mind, is there a way to append the report to have context, or I'm not sure what to provide both, calendar versus fiscal, just so that there are some data sets that will line up a bit cleaner? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're happy to work with you and provide it in whatever way you would want. My only caution will just be that anytime we send a PDF, they may be updated at a later time because of those reasons I mentioned.
And has DOT ever audited the process to identify any potential gaps in its data collection? Is it possible for DOT, or is it possible DOT is missing or failing to count any traffic fatalities as a result?
So I'm very confident that we are not missing any traffic fatalities. We spend a lot of effort to look into every single one. What we do spend some more time on is things like injuries, of which there are many more and are recorded by NYPD, often by individual officers. And we have spent a lot of time with NYPD on this because we sometimes see anomalies in that data, right? For example, if one precinct sees their injuries cut in half year to year and then double again the next year, that's usually a sign to us that there might have been an issue somewhere in the reporting process, which might have happened at NYPD, it might have happened at state DMV that actually compiles all of the data. So we spend a lot of effort looking for anomalies like that so that we can go back. And in some cases, we've gone back to NYPD and sat at the precinct and gone through the paper records just to make sure that we do have correct information. We have a data team that spends a lot of effort on this, And, you know, I'm very confident about the fatalities. I'm very confident about the injuries, but maybe not to the one, right? That there may be one or two that are missed in there. But there's a lot of effort both on our part, PD's part, and state DMV to make sure that we have correct numbers.
Thank you. Streets plan transparency. In September, this committee held an oversight hearing to get information from DOT about the progress the department has made in meeting its street plan mandates. Unfortunately, the department was not prepared at the time to provide the council with any insight into its ability to meet those requirements set out in law. Now, with the close of the year soon upon us, is the department prepared to let us know how many miles of protected bus and bike lanes have been installed to date?
We are prepared to follow the law and issue that report by early February. It is near the end of the year. Our teams are working very hard to finish up any projects that are out there. We've completed about 70 street improvement projects this year. There's another 40 or so that are ongoing, and we're working to complete by the end of the year. So it is still an ongoing process. And
I'm sorry, you said you completed 70 what?
We've completed approximately 70, and there's approximately 40 more that are still ongoing.
70
street improvement projects, which, you know, those are things like protected bike lanes or intersection improvements, things that are physical changes to the streets.
Do you feel that you're on target to meet the deadlines at the end of the reporting year?
You know, knowing that there's a lot of review that goes into it, we feel confident about meeting the legal deadline for that report.
For the report, but in terms of for what is expected to happen by then, will you meet that goal?
I mean, we will compile all the numbers for that report.
So you're unsure still?
So we haven't compiled those numbers yet because the team is very focused on implementing what we have. The reason we agreed on the February time in the legislation was really because that gives us a chance at the end of the year to fully take stock of what has been completed or has not been completed, and let us, you know, turn around that report pretty quickly at that point.
And is it taken into account the missed mark from before? Like, is it going to be all encompassing of it?
And just as a reminder, on the legislation, it's an average over the set period of years. So that's it's not just 50 miles per year. It's the average.
But the law also specifies how many should be done in each year.
Yes,
right. There's a floor for sure.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about. The floor. Obviously, if you exceed it, but wanting to make sure that the floor is being met, and it has not been. So I wanted to have a better understanding as to whether or not DOT projects that at the minimum the floor will be met.
Yeah. I mean, in this past year, we published in our report where we met and where we didn't, and I think we will do that again.
And just on the record, so that you understand, the questions is not a matter of to be like, I gotcha. It's really to understand what DOT needs in order to achieve the goals that are set forth in the law. And so when we get these type of answers, it's not helpful because it's hard to have line of sight as to, does DOT have enough funding? Does DOT have enough staffing? Are these metrics realistic? We don't know any of that because you're not really answering the questions.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think we feel like it's well provided on an annual basis, which allows those types of conversations. And we feel like that's really when we're able to provide the most accurate information.
What about bus stop upgrades, accessible pedestrian signals, and other requirements pursuant to the streets plan law? Is this something you can provide to us now or shortly after the hearing, at least?
Again, that would just be a part of that annualized report.
Okay. Those are the questions that I have for DOT. Do you have any of the responses to the questions outstanding?
Let me send a message really quick, and I will check, but.
So we'll just take a slight pause, and you let me know. Thanks. Oh, and Councilmember Mercedes Narcisse has a question.
How often do you assess the sidewalk, the curb especially?
I don't have the specific information. We do it typically based on request. We have inspectors that will go and inspect either a sidewalk or a curb.
Because I was blown away by finding out one of my streets. They said they've been complaining for 14 years and never fixed.
We are very aware that there's a lot of curb requests that are out there. You know, I think we repair as many as we can, trying to do it equitably around the city.
So it's not on the website?
I will.
The curb is not on the website, it's only
I
the
apologize, I
streets.
missed the start of the question.
Curb repairs that Sim does. Do we report on that on the website?
I don't know, is the truth.
So there's nowhere to be found, nowhere to make the assessment?
It may, I just would need to check, is the truth. I don't know off the top of my head, and I'd have to follow up with you.
All right, thank you.
Many of the outstanding questions are unresolved. I wrote them all down, but I do have the year-to-date numbers for potholes are 30,000 311 referrals about potholes. Some of them are
Sorry, say it again.
year-to-date, nearly 30,000 311 referrals about potholes. Some of them are multiples. So if I call for 2 days in a row, that's 2 different requests about the same one pothole.
And so those are the ones that came in, but how many of those have been resolved?
Right, and I haven't been able to get that.
But
You know, over 150,000 potholes were filled this year.
But it may not necessarily be the 30,000 that are actually calling in, right? So that 176,000 could be anywhere in New York City, but there's 30,000 that the constituency is calling in saying this is a problem. So it's not like a planned course of action.
It's just hard because the data doesn't necessarily tell us, you know, is one person calling multiple times a day until it gets filled? It's unknowable at this point. But I hear the importance, and we have a whole division that would love nothing more than to repave and fill those potholes. So I know that we have a home for those requests.
Yeah, and another complaint that we receive around that is oftentimes people will call it in and they'll get closed quickly and it's not resolved. And that's 311 in general, we get those type of complaints. So that's why I wanted to understand what those steps are that happens between DOT and or DEP to make sure that these are addressed and not necessarily just a Band-Aid, because I don't think it's good use of city resource dollars, especially in the fiscal climate we're in now, to put a Band-Aid knowing that a week later, i.e. Merrick Boulevard and 222nd, that cave-in is coming back. Because now you're sending man crew there, you're using more supplies, as opposed to really understanding what the situation is and fixing it appropriately.
Yeah, and I don't want to comment specifically about this location. I haven't had those conversations with DEP yet, but I just know that the water infrastructure, those are very expensive capital projects, and you know, I wouldn't be able to speak to what those price tags would be, but that's in the background.
And re-acknowledging Councilmember Ressler. And so also wanting to know if at any point DOT can provide us with a readout in terms of like the potholes that have been reported, repaired, and if it's happened again in that same location. Because I'm curious to know how many times we're going back to these same locations and what the dollar tag could be, like if you could even get as granular as that.
We'll follow up.
And so can we expect the rest of the answers to our questions by the weekend?
I don't want to promise something and have it make me a liar. I promise that I will follow up as soon as I possibly can. I know that you've requested a lot of information on potholes. I need to check in the office who's here.
Okay. Thank you.
We will now turn to public testimony. Each panelist will be given 2 minutes to speak. For panelists testifying in person, please come to the dais as your name is called and wait for your turn to speak. For panelists who are testifying remotely, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you and the Sergeant-at-Arms will give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the Sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. Our first panel will be Corey Ortega. Please come up and you may begin when ready. Also, please come up Christopher Leon Johnson and Raul Rivera. Mr. Ortega.
How you doing, everyone? Council members, Chair. I'm getting old. Excuse me. That's right, chew gum. So my name is Corey Ortega. I'm Assembly District Leader in Harlem, and I was in the back and I was listening to I came because the intros were, they spoke to my district, and the notifications part stood out for me, and not so because it's unfamiliar to me, but more so, I've recently spent time overseas with my mother, and the notification systems in other countries, they're just not the same. And I wasn't ready for that. And one afternoon, the lights going out, that's not a problem. The water went out for days. And that was a new experience for me. I'm like, all right, how do I address this? And thank God, like a day later, it started raining. And neighbors were pulling out, how do you say it in English? Cambumbos, containers, to collect the rainwater so they can heat up the water, mop the floor, do everything you need with water. And it made me think about, while I was sitting in the back, if only we had a notification that said, hey, heads up, maybe 2 to 5 days, no water. You can prepare for it. You can go to the equivalent of Home Depot or Choa and buy water and just save. And so I'm just here in favor of improving the notification process, because I know DOT is a massive agency, but through these conversations, I believe that we could do maybe a bit more besides the community boards, maybe community leaders, stakeholders, or even working with sister agencies like OEM, because when there's an emergency, trust me, someone's getting notified most ricky-tick, and every council member is going to be alerted, and every council member is going to show up at 2 o'clock in the morning in their district when they get that notification. And so I'm in favor of the notification intros, and I hope we can just improve on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ready?
Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Frias. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm speaking on favor of Intro 172. I believe that this bill need more sponsors, because we need to stop organizations like Transportation Alternatives and Open Plans from influencing these community boards. And the problem is that organizations like Transportation Alternatives, including Kathy Park-Price and Kevin Lachera, are influencing the DOT and influencing the community boards without real community input. And the problem is, with this, I say the good thing about this bill with Intro 172 is that it gives us enough time to say our opinion about what's going on with the stupid open streets. I'm not a big fan of open streets. I think they're a big danger to the city of New York, especially when it comes to police cars and fire trucks and ambulances. That could be a different day. But, my opinion is that we have to make sure, I think there should be more bills and provisions to prevent lobbying organizations just as Transportation Alternatives and Open Plans from influencing the DOT and influencing the community boards, because I don't really believe that the DOT is really ran by the city of New York. The DOT is ran by Transportation Alternatives, Danny Harris, Open Plans, Sarah K. Lynn, Jackson Shabbat, Kevin Lachera, and Kathy Park Price. So we need to get this bill passed. We need more sponsors for this bill, Intro 172, and we need to stop the regulatory capture of the city council by Transportation Alternatives, especially this committee right here who is captive to Trans-Alt, they're captive to Open Plans. And we have to stop this captivity by these corrupt nonprofits that's ruining our city. So we need to get that bill passed. Intro 172, Crystal Hudson, let's go.
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a TLC driver and a TLC driver advocate. I'm trying to find the words to say here, but I'll keep it basic and simple. The DOT is not the DOT. We asked for an investigation in the past, and we continue to do so. An investigation of the DOT, Transportation Alternatives, and all these non-for-profits that are hijacking our streets. This committee is either ignorant, unaware, or complicit of the hijacking of our streets. Zipcar, Torque-It, Get Around, City Bike. We are losing access to our streets. We know that 9 council members, including yourself, council member, have given Trans-Alt over $70,000 in donations. This is questionable. Why is that? Why are you selling out our city? The history of this committee will not be forgotten. You know we advocate, and when we advocate, we don't do it with personal attacks. But we have to be vocal, and we will continue to do so. We will not stop being vocal. $77,000 given to this Trans-Alt, this /DOT, hijacking our streets. That's what they're doing here in this city, and we're calling it out, and we will not stay silent. We'll continue to be vocal. Whether you want to keep looking at your phones or hear my testimony. That's what you do when we come here and testify. You ignore. And we're going to call it out, and we won't stop.
Thank you. We'll now move on to remote testimony on Zoom. We're going to begin with Manuel Kaufman, followed by Farhan.
Starting time.
Okay, we'll move on to Farhan, followed by Elizabeth Adams.
Time starts.
Farhan's not up. We'll continue with Elizabeth Adams, followed by Eric McClure.
Time starts.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you to the chair and the committee for today's hearing. My name is Elizabeth Adams, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Public Affairs at Transportation Alternatives. Today is likely the final transportation and infrastructure hearing of 2023, and we look back on a year marked by traffic violence and stalled projects. We also want to recognize some of the recent tragedies from Fort Greene to Flushing to Times Square, and that we have lost so many cherished members of our community to reckless drivers in just the past few weeks. DOT is well behind on the legal requirements of the streets plan. As DOT continues to fall short, we need to equip the agency with the tools to treat traffic violence crisis with the urgency it deserves, and to get projects in the ground now so that we can see real lasting improvements with better intersections, sidewalks, bike lanes, bus lanes, and more. With 2024 on the horizon, we need to focus on identifying barriers to progress and addressing them, not on legislation that will make it unnecessarily difficult to build safe streets, such as Intro 922, sponsored by Councilmember Arreola. As our city faces potential budget cuts, we cannot reduce the ability of DOT to make impactful improvements to street safety or add bureaucratic processes that impact our needs. We instead urge the council to pass Intro 417, which would remove unnecessary barriers to building bike lanes and street safety infrastructure. With regard to DOT transparency, we believe New Yorkers deserve to know where projects are and how DOT plans to improve street safety in their neighborhoods. Without public, frequently updated and transparent tracking systems, the public is left in the dark about where many of the streets plan metrics stand. DOT should create a project dashboard similar to the one used by the Parks Department, showing the design elements and current phases of each project, public engagement opportunities, timelines, status updates, and more. Releasing reports and data sets at regular intervals and in usable open data formats is important for advancing our needed street safety infrastructure. As we move into the new year, New Yorkers deserve a proactive and responsive DOT that meets the urgency of the traffic violence on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Eric McClure, followed by Sarah Lind.
Time starts.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Brooks Powers, for holding this hearing today. My name is Eric McClure. I'm the Executive Director of Streets PAC. As we near the end of 2023, we're faced with the reality that New York City will finish the year with roughly the same number of traffic deaths as we experienced in 2022, a figure at plus or minus 250 fatalities. That's about 25% higher than in 2018, the safest year on record. At the same time, we will again fail significantly to achieve many of the mandates required by the Streets Plan. We remain, sadly, a very long way from achieving Vision Zero. It is that context that makes several of the bills being heard this afternoon so disappointing. Rather than furthering efforts to move us closer to Vision Zero and advance the work of the Streets Plan, some of the legislation on today's agenda seems intended to hamstring the work of DOT. At a time when we're losing on average 5 New Yorkers to traffic crashes every week, the City Council should not be advancing legislation that would hamper street safety and public safety projects or take roundabout aim at the city's life-saving speed camera program. On to some of the specific bills today. Intro 172, we support in principle with some reservations. We certainly support what we believe to be the motivation behind Intro 172, which is to prevent the summary removal or modification of an open street at the whim of someone with the power to make that happen. As is too often the case, the effort to make streets safer or more inviting to uses other than driving and parking requires numerous hurdles, while undoing such changes can happen quickly. On the other hand, many of the notification steps for implementing open streets are already built into the official process, and rather than legislating additional steps, we believe that the measures called for in this bill, especially those that would prevent the rapid undoing of projects, could be addressed in DOT's rulemaking process, and we urge that this be negotiated rather than legislated. Intro 810, we support in principle, again with reservations, the effort to clean up the placement and maintenance of news racks. We have some additional thoughts on that we will include in our written testimony, which we will submit following the hearing. We also support in principle with reservations Intro 1030, intended to increase the transparency and access to information about the status of requests for traffic control devices. Again, as has been outlined in this meeting, much of that information exists, and we would urge a negotiation between the bill sponsors and DOT to arrive at a satisfactory outcome that improves transparency and availability of data. Finally, for intros 922, intro 1033, and intro 1120, we oppose all three of those proposed bills. We will go into detail in our written testimony, but needless to say, we don't think that they really advance street safety in any meaningful way and would actually do harm. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Sarah Lind, followed by Carlos Steinman.
Thank you, Chair Brooks Powers and members of the committee for holding this hearing. We support some of these bills, but we believe many of the bills have provisions that would put in place barriers to transforming our streets to be more people-centered and livable. The city's already behind on its streets plan mandates, and we hear from members of this committee and members of the council as a whole how much they want the city to meet those mandates and how much they want the streets plan to be put in place. And yet they're considering bills today that would delay any movement on the streets plan, and that's very disappointing to see. I would echo some of what Eric McClure said about some of the bills that we support with some reservations. So I want to, though, specifically say that we strongly oppose Intro 922. This bill would be an incredible barrier to change on our streets, and it would be a big mistake to pass it. It would cement parking as the default use of our city's curb when we should be transitioning into making our curb work for all users, not just those with cars, who are a minority of New Yorkers. At a time when DOT is trying to make transformational change at the curb with their curb management action plan, again, part of the mandates of the streets plan, and they're already struggling to meet their mandates, this requirement would serve as an impediment. And council members, like I said, regularly bemoan the lack of progress while simultaneously putting up barriers, both these bills and barriers within their own communities, delaying and denying projects that would help DOT meet the goals of the streets plan. So we need every council member to do all they can to support the plan, not pass legislation that would impede it. And I will leave it at that. And again, echo Eric McClure and Elizabeth Adams' testimony as well.
Thank you. Just a reminder to submit any testimony, any written testimony you have to our council email, testimony@council.nyc.gov. Next, we'll hear from Carlos Steinman, followed by Gerald or Jerry Scup.
Time starts.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. Thank you to the chair and the committee for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Carlos Steinman from the Times Square Alliance, here to speak in favor of Councilmember Bottcher's Intro 810 on news racks. Each day in Times Square, we welcome over 300,000 people, with peak days approaching 450,000 people. The streets and plazas in Times Square are always bustling and full of crowds of people from all over the world, competing for limited amounts of pedestrian space. Creating a system of orderly management of all street furniture, including news racks, is key to reducing clutter and to helping beautify Times Square and all of New York's neighborhoods. This is particularly true when pedestrian space is being given over to commercial uses, as is the case with news racks. So we believe that allowing the Department of Transportation to create rules to evaluate and regulate the siting and design of sidewalk news racks is a great step, and we are happy to support Intro 810. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Gerald or Jerry Scup, followed by Daniel Scores.
Time starts.
Good afternoon. My name is Gerald Scup, and I am testifying on behalf of the Garment District Alliance. The Alliance applauds Councilmember Bottcher and other proposers of Intro 810, a local law to amend the administrative code of the City of New York in relation to news box requirements. News boxes, in addition to being an all but obsolete conveyance of news, are an unnecessary commercial encumbrance on the cluttered sidewalks of Midtown. Being in proximity to the Port Authority bus terminal and Penn Station, among other transportation hubs, the area has tremendous volumes of pedestrian traffic. With all the traffic signs, light poles, blinks, kiosks, hydrants, mailboxes, newsstands, news boxes, and other sidewalk vendors, the sidewalks are overly congested, and pedestrians often have to unsafely walk in the streets. Although the Alliance would prefer to see news boxes eliminated completely from our public realm, we will gladly accept any efforts to restrict or reduce the number of these nuisances, such as those proposed in Intro 810. We also urge the council to consider penalties for news box operators that do not keep the boxes in clean, orderly condition and filled with their publications, so that they do not become trash receptacles, as many are now. Additionally, we encourage the council to consider an achievable enforcement mechanism. Many legislative efforts to regulate the public realm, such as those relating to vendors, open restaurants, and pedicab parking, are rendered meaningless without enforcement. Regardless of the above stated challenges, we support and appreciate the council members' efforts to address the current deplorable condition of the Newsbox program as a meaningful step to regaining control over our public spaces. The Garment District Alliance thanks the committee for this opportunity to express our support of Intro 810. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Daniel Scores, followed by Glenn Bolofsky.
Time starts.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Scores. I'm the Vice President of Operations for the Hudson Yards Hell's Kitchen Alliance, otherwise known as HYHK. It's a business improvement district bounded roughly by 30th Street, 42nd Street, 9th Avenue, and 11th Avenue. I'm here to voice HYHK's support for Intro 810. The current situation with news racks is similar to the tragedy of the Commons. a basic Econ 101 theory, which states that private interests with access to a public resource will ruin that public resource if allowed to. News racks are inherently a private good which uses a public resource, the sidewalk. Strong regulations are essential to maintain the public resource for everyone's benefit. Intro 810 contains common sense regulations which are supported by HYHK. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Glenn Bolofsky.
Time starts.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'd like to commend the chair and the members of the Transportation Committee for having great hearings this year, and also for everybody's hard work in getting things done. I see a lot of positive changes this year. I'd like to also thank the central staff for working very hard behind the scenes. I would like to comment for everyone's, for the record, that I'm highly disappointed in the Department of Transportation's failure to communicate. If we're talking years and decades of issues on Flatlands Avenue and Ralph Avenue in Brooklyn, and decades of non-compliance with street safety rules on the books in Queens and all over the city, it's a great disappointment as a born and bred New Yorker to hear this. It's a great, grave disappointment. And all of these bills today, I strongly support on behalf of myself and all the members of parkingticket.com. We have over 150,000 individual members, as well as large and small businesses. It's distasteful to me to hear that they won't communicate with the chair by the end of the week or the next week, or even by the end of the year, or how about by the end of the decade? No commitments to communicate. It's a joke. And it's a sad joke. And I think there should be consideration of a possible new bill with fines and payments attached to their failure to communicate. Because if it doesn't cost them money, they don't care. That's my comment about the Department of Transportation of the City of New York. And I thank everyone for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Just to run through one more time to see if Manuel Kaufman or Farhan are on Zoom. Please raise your hand and you'll be unmuted. For in-person testimony, if we inadvertently left out or missed anyone, please come up to the dais. Okay, for the remote portion, please hold on for 1 moment. It looks like we're done with the remote portion. Seeing no one else, I turn it over to Chair Brooks Powers for closing remarks.
Thank you to all of the members who took part in today's oversight hearing, as well as the members of the public for their testimony and contribution to the conversation. I'd like to thank the committee staff for all of the work during this term on this committee as we centered equity in our conversations and our efforts to hold city agencies and state agencies alike accountable to New Yorkers. And we wish everyone a happy holiday and look forward to our continued work that continues. Thank you. With that, this hearing is adjourned.